My family made me sign an agreement to stop acting like their mother, so I stopped. 3 weeks later, CPS took my siblings away. They said I was cruel. I said I was just respecting their boundaries. My family told me they didn't need me anymore, so I stopped, just like that. We're done with you acting like you're in charge, Mom announced, pushing a tablet across the kitchen counter. The same tablet I had saved up 3 months to buy her. This paper says you're just a sibling now. Nothing more. No playing mother. Sign it. Tara and Cyan stood behind her like matching bodyguards, arms crossed, eyes drilling holes into me. You're not even that important, Jasmine. Nobody asked you to do all this. The words hung in the air, heavy and wrong. I became a parent at 9 years old. While Mom was off with whichever boyfriend, I was the one waking up at night when Tara cried. I was the one helping Cyan with his homework. I was the one who noticed when Tara got her first period 3 years ago, something Mom asked me about just last week like it hadn't already happened. I looked at each of their faces. So sure of themselves, so certain they had the upper hand. I picked up the pen and signed with a smile. You're right. If all you want is a sister, then that's exactly what you'll get. They exchanged smug glances. They thought they had won. The next morning, I heard Mom bragging to someone on the phone. Her new boyfriend, probably. Already things are so much better around here, she said loudly, making sure I could hear. Should have done this ages ago. Tara and Cyan moved through the house like they owned it, eating the lunches I had packed Sunday night, wearing clothes I had washed and folded. Mom announced to no one in particular, this is what a real family looks like, not that Jasmine dictatorship nonsense. That's when I decided to show them what real looked like. Monday morning, I took myself to Starbucks for the first time ever. Sat there scrolling on my phone, sipping something overpriced and sweet, enjoying every second. Meanwhile, back at the house, chaos was unfolding. Cyan slept through his alarm, missed his first class entirely. Tara showed up to school in the same outfit she had worn 2 days in a row, hair a mess, wallet empty. Mom got a call from her boss about being 2 hours late. She had no idea there was a morning routine to handle. She had never needed to know. I always did it. By Thursday, the house looked and smelled like a disaster zone. I walked in after school to find Cyan wearing his gym shorts to regular classes. Everything else he owned was piled in a corner, unwearable. Mom was on the phone with the electric company, her voice shaky as she begged for more time. She didn't know bills had due dates. She had never needed to know. Hey, Jazz, Cyan called out like nothing had changed between us. Can you grab me some deodorant when you go out? That sounds like mothering, I said. And I think we established that's not my job anymore. Come on, don't be like that. Like what? Respectful of your boundaries? I pulled up the agreement on my phone. This is sibling duties only. Deodorant shopping is not a sibling duty. He stomped off, muttering about me being dramatic. Smell lingered for days. Saturday was Tara's orchestra concert. I sat in the audience and watched my sister walk onto the stage wearing a wrinkled dress with a dark stain across the front. The same dress I used to pick up from the dry cleaner every month. Parents around me whispered. Kids pointed and giggled. After the concert, her teacher pulled Mom aside. Is everything okay with Tara's concert attire? There was a dress code. I stepped in, voice loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. Oh, we had a family meeting, I said cheerfully. I used to handle her concert clothes, but that was overstepping. So now Mom is in charge for the first time ever. Isn't that exciting? Mom's face turned white. We're just reorganizing things at home, she stammered. She made me sign an agreement, I added, pulling out my phone again. I'm not allowed to act like their mother anymore. Just a sister. No more Jasmine dictatorship. The teacher's expression shifted from confusion to concern. Tara ran off stage crying. Mom stood frozen, surrounded by glaring parents. The school guidance counselor called me on Wednesday afternoon. Jasmine, I have some concerns about your brother and sister. Several teachers have reported. I can't help you, I said. My family made it very clear that I have no authority over them. But you've always been the one we contact when there are issues. Not anymore. They set new boundaries, and I'm respecting them. 20 minutes later, Mom burst into my room. Her face was blotchy and wet. Jasmine, please, social services is on their way if they see the house like this. Like what? I looked around. Dirty dishes piled in the sink, trash bags overflowing, clothes everywhere. All those things you used to handle, I said. The dishes, the laundry, the food, science grades, sounds like a lot of mothering work. Good thing you're here to do it now. I'm begging you. Just help me clean up before they get here. The doorbell rang. My heart didn't even speed up. Hello, Miss Williams. We've received multiple reports about your children's living conditions. Mom looked at me with wide, desperate eyes. Just smiled. The social worker stepped inside and stopped moving. Her nose wrinkled immediately. Dishes sat in the sink with green fuzz growing on them. Trash bags were piled against the wall with flies buzzing around. The smell was impossible to miss. Cyan stood in the doorway wearing the same stained shirt he'd had on 4 days ago. Dark circles under his arms, his hair greasy and unwashed. The social worker pulled out her tablet and started taking pictures. Click, click, click. Mom stood frozen, watching her home get documented like a crime scene. She walked through the living room taking more photos. Pizza boxes on the floor, laundry covering every surface. She opened the refrigerator and stepped back. Empty shelves, a container of something moldy on the bottom rack. That was it. Mrs. Williams, this isn't just a bad week, is it? Mom's mouth opened and closed. Nothing came out. We've had reports from the school for 2 weeks now. Your son wearing the same clothes day after day. Your daughter showing up hungry. Missing meals. The woman pulled out her tablet. I need to speak with each child separately, starting with Jasmine. She led me to the dining room table, the only clean surface in the house. I had been doing my homework there. Jasmine, I understand there have been some recent changes in your household. I pulled out my phone and showed her the signed agreement. My mom made me sign this 2 weeks ago. Her eyebrows rose as she read through it. She forced you to sign this? She said I was making everything about myself and needed to stick to sibling duties only. The woman typed notes onto her tablet. What exactly were you doing before this agreement? I took a deep breath. Everything. Can you be more specific? So I told her, waking them up at 6:30 every morning, making breakfast, packing lunches, laundry, homework help. Dinner, doctor appointments, parent-teacher conferences, paying the bills online because mom didn't understand computers. Everything. Her fingers moved fast across the screen. How long have you been doing all this? I had to think about it. Since I was 9. She stopped typing, looked up at me. 9 years old, I nodded. Mom had a new boyfriend who didn't like kids around. She was gone a lot. She brought Tara in next. My sister looked rough, tangled hair, with stains down her shirt. She sat down and started crying before anyone even asked a question. I'm so hungry all the time, she sobbed. There's no food. I don't have lunch money. The only thing I know how to make is cereal, and we ran out of milk days ago. The social worker asked about her clothes, about why she wore the same wrinkled dress to her concert. Jasmine always made sure it was clean, Tara said. She knew which things needed to be dry cleaned and which could go in the washer. Mom doesn't know any of that. She admitted she didn't know how to work the washing machine, or the stove, or how to properly wash her own hair. Jasmine had always done those things. Sion came in next, slouching in his chair like this was wasting his time. How long have you been wearing that shirt? The social worker asked. I don't know. Why haven't you changed? He shrugged. I don't know how to do laundry. Nobody ever taught me. Jasmine just did it. She asked about his failed exam, about why he missed his first period class. Nobody woke me up, he said. Mom doesn't know when school starts. She doesn't know what classes I'm even taking. What about meals? We've been eating cereal and snacks. I used the last of my birthday money on fast food yesterday. Finally, it was Mom's turn. She walked in with her chin up, like she was about to handle everything, but we could hear most of it through the door. The social worker asked what time school started. Mom guessed wrong. She asked for the names of Tara's teachers. Mom couldn't name one. She asked about medical conditions. Mom didn't know about Tara's allergies or that Sion needed glasses. This is Jasmine's fault, Mom's voice got louder. She's doing this to punish me. She made me sign that agreement. Mrs. Williams, regardless of what Jasmine did or didn't do, you are the parent here. Mom kept going, kept blaming, kept deflecting. The social worker cut her off. What grade is your son in? What is your daughter's shoe size? When were their last dental appointments? Silence. The woman came back out and made calls right there in the living room. Yes, we need immediate intervention. The home is uninhabitable. The children don't have adequate food or clothing. There's clear neglect. Mom grabbed my arm, her nails dug in. Tell them you'll help. Tell them this is temporary. I gently pulled her fingers off one by one. You made me sign an agreement, remember? 2 more workers arrived within the hour. Clipboards, cameras. They documented every room. A bathroom with black mold in the shower. The toilet that hadn't been cleaned in weeks. The empty refrigerator. The mountain of dirty dishes. One of them found Tara's bloody underwear crumpled on her bedroom floor. And when she got her period this week and didn't know what to do, nobody had taught her. Jasmine had always handled that. Tara started crying again. The case supervisor pulled up in a black SUV. An older woman with gray hair and tired eyes. She reviewed everything. Then she turned to Mom. Mrs. Williams, based on what we found today, we're placing both minor children in emergency protective custody. Mom dropped to her knees. Sobbed, begged. One more chance, please, I just need more time. The supervisor shook her head. Your children are living in unsafe conditions without proper care or supervision. Workers went upstairs to pack bags. Tara screamed at them not to touch her things. Sion stood frozen in the living room doorway, his face cycling through confusion, anger, and fear. They came back down with 2 small suitcases. Tara was shaking. Sion looked like he'd just been punched. Mom lunged at me again. Please, Jasmine, just tell them you'll do everything like you used to. You made me sign an agreement that I wouldn't parent them anymore. She screamed that I was cruel, that I was destroying the family. The supervisor pulled her away. The workers led Tara and Sion toward the door. Tara spun around one last time. You did this on purpose, she screamed at me, her voice cracking. You wanted them to take us. Sion just stared at me with an expression I had never seen before. Not anger, not sadness, something else, something like understanding. They loaded them into the SUV. Mom ran after them, begging. The supervisor blocked her from getting inside. I watched through the window as the vehicle pulled away. My siblings' faces pressed against the back glass, getting smaller and smaller. Mom stood in the driveway, frozen, staring at nothing. Went upstairs, packed my own bag, and called my friend to come get me. That night, I sat on my friend Sarah's bed while my phone buzzed nonstop. Mom called 17 times and left 8 voicemails. The first 3 were her screaming that I had ruined everything. The next 2 were her crying and begging me to come home and help her get the kids back. The last 3 switched between blaming me and apologizing, and then blaming me again. I turned my phone off. Sarah's mom made me breakfast the next morning. We were sitting at their kitchen table when pounding started on the front door. Mom was standing there. Hair a mess, yesterday's makeup smeared under her eyes. She looked like she hadn't slept at all. I know she's here. She pushed past Sarah's dad and found me in the kitchen. You're coming home right now. We're fixing this. Sarah's dad stepped between us. You need to leave. Now, Mom started screaming about how I was her daughter and she could make me come home. Sarah's mom calmly picked up her phone and said she was calling the police if Mom didn't leave immediately. Mom looked at me one more time, your hatred in her eyes. Then she stormed out, slamming the door so hard a picture fell off the wall. 2 days passed before I got a call from Mrs. Peterson at the school. Jasmine, I heard about what happened. Wanted to check on you. Her voice was warm, kind. I also want you to know that I'm proud of you for protecting yourself. She told me the school had counseling services available if I needed them. Several teachers had been worried about my siblings for weeks. They were relieved someone finally stepped in. 3 days after that, I got an official notice about a family court hearing to determine temporary custody. I spent the morning printing out copies of the signed agreement. Screenshots of Mom's texts from the past few weeks. Photos I had been taking of the house getting worse and worse. I organized everything into a folder and put on my nicest clothes. The courthouse was downtown, an old building that smelled like floor wax and old paper. I got there early and sat outside, watching other families go in and out. Mom showed up 15 minutes late. Same wrinkled shirt from 3 days ago. Greasy hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. dark circles under her eyes. She kept checking her phone like she was waiting for someone. Her boyfriend must have bilayed when things got serious. She was completely alone. The bailiff called us in. The judge was an older woman with gray hair and glasses on a chain around her neck. She reviewed the CPS report first, reading parts out loud about the condition of the house. The children's statements, the empty fridge, the moldy bathroom, the same clothes for days. Then she asked Mom about her parenting capabilities. Mom started strong. She had been overwhelmed, but was ready to do better. The judge asked specific questions about Tara's medical needs. Mom went blank. Couldn't even remember what medication Tara took for her allergies. The judge asked about Cyan's learning accommodation plan. The school had sent home multiple notices. Mom didn't even know he had one. The judge looked at Mom for a long moment. She turned to the bailiff and asked him to bring Tara and Cyan into her chambers. They both stood up looking confused and followed her through the heavy wooden door behind the bench. Mom kept wringing her hands, looking at me like I could somehow fix this. 20 minutes passed, just the sound of the courtroom clock ticking. When the door finally opened, Tara came out first. Her eyes were red. She wouldn't even look in my direction. Cyan followed behind her looking pale and shaken, like someone had just told him something he couldn't unhear. They sat back down. The judge took another 5 minutes writing notes before she finally spoke. Based on the home inspection, the children's statements, and Mom's clear lack of basic parenting knowledge, she was ordering both kids to remain in foster care. Mom would need to complete a 12-week parenting course and individual therapy sessions. She would also have to pass regular home inspections before the court would even consider returning custody. Mom started sobbing so loud the bailiff had to tell her to quiet down. Right in the middle of the judge explaining the visitation schedule, Mom's phone started ringing. She fumbled to silence it, but I could see her work's number on the screen. The phone rang again 30 seconds later. The judge told her she could step out to take it if it was an emergency. Mom answered in the hallway, but we could all hear her through the door. Her boss was telling her that her excessive absences over the past 2 weeks meant they had to let her go. Tried explaining about the court case, but they said she had already used up all her sick days and vacation time. Mom came back and looking like she had been punched in the gut. The judge wrapped up by setting the next hearing date for 3 months out and dismissed us. I walked out first and was heading to the parking lot when I heard someone calling my name. A woman with graying hair and Mom's same nose was walking toward me. It was Mom's sister, my aunt, the one I hadn't seen since I was maybe 10. She said she had heard about everything from a cousin and came to see if it was really as bad as people were saying. She told me she had no idea things had gotten this bad and felt terrible for not checking in more. Her house had a spare bedroom. She wanted me to come stay with her. I thanked her but explained that I needed to focus on my own life now. I had spent 9 years raising my siblings. It was time to figure out who I was without taking care of everyone else. She nodded like she understood and handed me a piece of paper with her phone number, said to call if I changed my mind. Mom walked past us without saying anything, just shot me a look full of hate. A week went by. I was at my job at the bookstore when my coworker mentioned seeing Cyan at the grocery store with an older couple. She said he looked miserable and was arguing with them about something. Later that day, I got a text from one of Tara's friends. They were in different foster homes on opposite sides of town. Tara was apparently struggling with all the rules, set bedtimes, chore schedules, things she had never had before. A friend said Cyan kept complaining about having to ask permission for everything. Back when I was handling things, he never had to ask. I just did it all without making it a big deal. Days after that, I got an email from Tara's orchestra teacher. She wanted to let me know that Tara had to drop out of the program. Her foster family lived 45 minutes away from the school. There was no way to get her to rehearsals. The teacher wrote that she was really sad to lose such a talented student. Wondered if there was any way to work something out. I wrote back explaining I wasn't Tara's guardian anymore. She would need to contact CPS about it. The teacher responded saying she understood, but it was such a shame. Tara had real potential. That weekend, I was doing homework when Mom called me crying. She had just finished her first parenting class and couldn't believe how much she didn't know. They had spent 2 hours just on child development basics. She realized she didn't even know what was normal for a 14 and 16-year-old. Said the instructor asked everyone to share their morning routine with their kids. She was the only one who didn't have one. She begged me to help her understand some of the stuff they were teaching. I told her that defeated the whole purpose of the classes. She hung up on me. I started focusing on my own life for the first time since I was 9. I got more hours at the bookstore, started putting money aside for college, found out I could still apply for spring admission at the state school, and started working on my application essays. One of my coworkers mentioned a support group for people who had been parentified as kids. I decided to check it out. The meeting was in a church basement on Tuesday nights. There were 8 other people there, all different ages. The facilitator had us go around and share a little about our situations. A woman talked about raising her 4 younger brothers while her mom worked 3 jobs. A guy my age described taking care of his disabled sister since he was 7 because his parents couldn't handle it. Another girl had been managing her family's bills and appointments since middle school because her parents didn't speak English well. When it was my turn, I told them about the agreement and everything that happened after. Nobody looked shocked. Nobody judged me for letting my siblings go into foster care. The facilitator said what I had experienced wasn't normal, and it wasn't my fault. She explained that parentification is a form of abuse, even when it doesn't feel like it. Hearing other people's stories made me realize how messed up my childhood actually was. They all talked about the guilt they felt when they finally stopped taking care of everyone else. A woman said it took her years of therapy to understand that she deserved to have her own life. The group gave me books to read and websites to check out about recovering from parentification. That same night, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Can you let me into the house to grab my stuff? Your mom isn't answering her phone." It was Mom's boyfriend. He needed his work clothes and laptop. I stared at the message for about 2 seconds before blocking the number completely. 3 weeks crawled by. I settled into a routine at Sarah's house. Work at the bookstore. Support group meetings on Tuesday nights. Actually sleeping through the night for once. Then on a Tuesday afternoon, while I was making myself a sandwich in Sarah's kitchen, I heard loud knocking at the front door. Sarah's mom answered it. I heard Cyan's voice, desperate, shaky. "Please, I need to talk to Jasmine." He stood there in dirty clothes, a backpack that looked way too heavy for him. His eyes were red and puffy from crying. He started talking fast about how he couldn't take the foster home anymore. Many rules, screen time limits, chore schedules, homework checks. They made him go to bed at 10 o'clock every night like he was still in elementary school. He kept saying I understood him better than anyone, begging me to let him stay, just for a few nights until he figured something out. He said he'd sleep on the floor, wouldn't eat much, would help with chores. Sarah's mom looked at me with this mix of concern and confusion. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone and dialed the CPS emergency number they had given me at court. Cyan's face went from hopeful to shocked to angry as he realized what I was doing. Tried to grab the phone from me, but Sarah's mom stepped between us. The CPS operator took down all the information and said someone would be there within the hour to pick him up. Cyan sat on the front steps, refusing to look at me or talk to anyone while we waited. The social worker who showed up was the same one from the initial investigation. She gave me this small nod of approval as she guided Cyan to her car. She mentioned quietly that both kids were having a hard time adjusting, but were finally getting real therapy and support services they had never had access to before. She said Cyan had been acting out a lot at his placement, but that was pretty normal for kids who had never had structure. After they left, I threw up in the bathroom and cried for 20 minutes. A week later, I got a call from Mom. She was sobbing about her home inspection. The CPS worker had shown up to check if she had made the required improvements to get the kids back. Mom said the worker took one look at the kitchen, with dishes still piled up and food going bad on the counter, and started writing notes immediately. The bathroom had mold growing in the shower that Mom didn't know how to clean properly. She had tried to do laundry but left wet clothes in the washer for 3 days. They smelled awful. The worker asked to see the kids' rooms. Mom hadn't even made their beds or picked up the clothes from the floor. The judge extended the foster care placement for another 3 months minimum. Mom kept crying about how unfair it was, how she was trying her best. Nobody had taught her these things. I was at the grocery store the next Saturday, buying ramen and frozen pizza, when I turned the corner and almost ran my cart into 2 of Mom's friends from her book club. They looked at me like I was actual garbage, whispering loud enough for me to hear about how I destroyed my own family and put those poor kids in foster care just to be spiteful. One of them said Mom had told everyone at church how I had refused to help when CPS came, how I had deliberately made things worse. They walked away shaking their heads and muttering about ungrateful children. That same week, Sarah's mom sat me down at their kitchen table with a laptop and a folder full of papers. She showed me how to open a checking account online, explained about minimum balances and overdraft fees, how to use the mobile app to deposit checks. She helped me fill out the FAFSA for college financial aid, something I didn't even know existed because Mom had never mentioned it. She taught me how to build credit with a secured card, showed me websites for finding apartments and understanding lease agreements, made me practice writing checks and balancing a checkbook, even though she said most people don't use them anymore. She explained health insurance and car insurance and renter's insurance. All these adult things Mom never thought to teach me. 2 days later, I got a letter forwarded through CPS from Tara. Her handwriting was messier than usual, and the paper had tear stains on it. She wrote that I was selfish and cruel, that I had ruined her life on purpose, that I could have fixed everything but chose to destroy the family instead. She wrote that she hated me and never wanted to see me again. She said her foster parents were mean and strict and didn't understand her like I did. She blamed me for missing orchestra and falling behind in school and not having any of her stuff. Let her hurt worse than anything Mom had ever said to me. At my support group, the therapist helped me understand that Tara was processing trauma and grief. That anger was easier than admitting she had been wrong. She explained that kids often blame the safe person rather than the one who actually hurt them. 3 weeks after that, Mom called crying again. She had gotten an eviction notice. Without my income from the bookstore helping with rent, without me keeping track of when bills were due, she had missed 3 months of payments. The landlord was done giving her extensions. She couldn't understand how the bills had piled up so fast or why the late fees were so high. She said she had tried to make a budget, but the numbers didn't make sense to her. She had been spending money on takeout every night because she didn't know how to meal plan or grocery shop properly. My aunt, the one who had offered to help me before, agreed to let Mom move in temporarily. Months into the whole mess, I got a letter about mandatory family therapy. The judge had ordered all 4 of us to attend a session together with a court-appointed therapist. The letter said it was part of the reunification process. Attendance was required. The session was scheduled for the following Thursday at the courthouse. Mom showed up looking different than I had seen her in years. Her hair was actually brushed and styled. She wore clean clothes that matched. She looked sober for once. She had lost weight. Her eyes were clearer. She sat across from me in the waiting room but didn't try to talk. When we got called in, the therapist had us sit in a circle with her between Mom and me. Ara and Cyan sat on the other side, looking uncomfortable and angry. The therapist started by asking Mom to share what she had learned in her parenting classes. Mom talked for 10 minutes about child development and age-appropriate expectations, about how she realized she had never known what kids actually needed at different stages. Then the therapist asked her directly about my role in the family before everything happened. Mom got quiet, stared at her hands for a long time. Finally, she looked up at me with tears running down her face and said the words I had waited 9 years to hear. She admitted that she had forced me to be the parent, that she had stolen my childhood. She had been selfish and neglectful and wrong. She said she understood now that what she had done to me was abuse, even though she hadn't hit me or meant to hurt me. She said the parenting classes made her realize how much damage she had caused all of us. It was the first time she had ever taken real accountability for anything. But sitting there listening to her, all I felt was empty, because it was way too late for apologies to fix what she had broken. The therapist turned to Tara next. My sister's face crumpled. Tears started rolling down her cheeks as she looked at me with this mix of pain and anger that made my chest tight. She wiped her nose on her sleeve and told the therapist she missed me so much it hurt. But she also hated me for letting everything fall apart. She didn't understand why I couldn't just fix things like I always did before. The therapist nodded and explained in this calm voice that Tara's anger at me was actually meant for Mom, but it felt safer to be mad at me. She told Tara that I was just a kid too when I started taking care of everyone. That wasn't supposed to be my job. Tara kept crying harder and harder until she was making these little gasping sounds. The therapist handed her tissues and waited for her to calm down. Then she turned to Cyan. My brother sat there picking at a hole in his jeans. Wouldn't look at anyone. The therapist asked him 3 times before he finally mumbled that he knew what they did to me was messed up. He said he knew I was basically raising them, while Mom did nothing. But he didn't want to give up having someone do everything for him. He looked at me for maybe 2 seconds and said sorry. But I could tell from his voice, he was mostly just sorry his easy life was over. The therapist wrote notes on her clipboard for what felt like forever before looking up at all of us. She recommended we all continue with separate therapy before trying to be a family again. She said Mom needed to prove she could actually parent, and I needed time to figure out who I was without taking care of everyone. Mom nodded and promised she would do whatever it took to get the kids back. I made it clear I wouldn't be coming back no matter what. The session ended with the therapist scheduling individual appointments for everyone and reminding us this would be a long process. Weeks after that session, I got home from my job to find a thick envelope from the state university waiting for me. My hands shook as I opened it and read the acceptance letter. They were offering me a full scholarship based on my grades and the essay I had written about my situation. I sat on Sarah's bed staring at the letter because I never thought I would actually get to leave, start fresh somewhere new. Sarah's mom found me crying and hugged me while I showed her the letter. She helped me fill out all the housing forms and even drove me to campus for orientation day. The scholarship covered everything: books, meal plans, dorm room. I could actually focus on school instead of working 3 jobs. Meanwhile, Mom kept going to her parenting classes every Tuesday and Thursday at the community center. She called me once to say she had passed her first test about child development milestones. I could hear in her voice she was proud of herself for learning what temperature to wash clothes at and how to check if meat was cooked through. 6 weeks after the kids got placed in foster care, she passed her second home inspection at my aunt's house. The judge reviewed all her progress reports and approved supervised visits with Tara and Cyan starting the next Saturday. Mom showed up 15 minutes late to the first visit because she got lost finding the supervision center. The social worker had to remind her twice about the rules. No discussing the case. No making promises about when they would come home. Tara spent most of the hour showing Mom her math homework. Cyan played on his phone and barely talked. The second visit went better. Mom remembered to bring snacks, but she forgot Tara was allergic to peanuts and brought peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. The third visit, she showed up on time with safe snacks, but she couldn't help Cyan with his history project because she didn't know anything about the Civil War. Kept mixing up dates and which side won what battles until Cyan got frustrated and stopped asking. After 2 months of supervised visits, the judge reviewed everything again and decided Mom could have the kids on weekends. They would stay with their foster families during the week where they had structure and homework help, but spend Friday night through Sunday with Mom. The first weekend, Mom picked them up 2 hours late because she forgot what time school ended. She didn't know Tara had orchestra practice on Saturdays or that Cyan had a job at the grocery store on Sunday mornings. 3 months passed with this schedule. Mom slowly got better at remembering their routines, though she still messed up sometimes. The judge decided the arrangement was working well enough to continue. The kids had stability during the week with foster parents who knew how to help with homework and get them places on time. August came. I packed everything I owned into 2 suitcases and a backpack for college. Sarah's parents drove me to campus and helped me carry my stuff up to the 3rd floor dorm room. My roommate was already there unpacking what looked like her entire bedroom from home. String lights, throw pillows, a whole life worth of decorations. She complained that her mom had already called 4 times that day to check if she was settling in okay. I just nodded because I couldn't relate to having a mom who cared that much. That first week of classes felt like stepping into a different world. Nobody knew my story. I could just be a normal college kid, worried about picking classes and finding the dining hall. 3 weeks into the semester, I got a notification on Instagram from Tara. He had sent me a photo of herself standing next to a washing machine. The caption said her foster mom had taught her how to separate colors from whites. It wasn't much, but I appreciated that she wanted to share this moment with me after everything. I liked the photo and commented with a heart emoji. A month later, Cyan messaged me on Facebook asking if I could look over his college application essay. He started typing that he needed help with the grammar, but then stopped and sent another message saying never mind. He remembered I wasn't supposed to help anymore. We both sent crying laughing emojis. Something about acknowledging how weird everything had become made it feel a little less heavy. 2 months passed. Mom kept to the weekend schedule and actually showed up on time more often than not. Social workers' reports kept mentioning small improvements. Mom remembering to pack lunches, asking about homework even if she couldn't help with it. The judge looked over everything at the next hearing and decided Mom could have them for the whole spring break week to see how she handled it. I watched from my dorm room as Tara posted photos of them at the park. Cyan shared a video of Mom trying to make pancakes from scratch instead of a box. The pancakes looked terrible, but they were all laughing about it, something I had never seen before. When the week ended without any major disasters, the judge signed off on full reunification starting after the school year ended. Mom had to keep going to therapy and parenting classes. The kids would be living with her full-time at my aunt's house. My aunt had basically taken over making sure bills got paid and groceries got bought, while Mom focused on learning how to actually parent. 3 weeks after they moved back, I got a text from Mom asking if I wanted to come for dinner on Saturday. I stared at my phone for 20 minutes before typing yes. The drive to my aunt's house felt weird. I had never been there as just a visitor before. When I walked in, the smell hit me first. Actual food cooking instead of takeout containers everywhere. The living room had toys scattered around, but not the disaster zone it used to be. Mom came out of the kitchen wearing an apron I had never seen before, flour in her hair. She had made spaghetti from a jar with garlic bread from the freezer. But the table was set with real plates. Everyone had napkins. Tara showed me her report card after dinner, pointed to each grade like they were trophies. 2 CS, 3 Bs, and 1 A- in art class. She explained how she had to actually study now instead of me doing everything. Her foster mom had taught her how to use flashcards. The grades weren't as good as when I did her homework, but she had earned every single one herself. Cyan pulled out his phone to show me photos of the grocery store where he worked stocking shelves 3 nights a week. He had saved $400 already. Found a used Honda he wanted to buy once he had enough. His manner said he was one of the most reliable workers they had, something that made him proud in a way I had never seen before. After dinner, Mom asked if we could talk outside while the kids did dishes. Their new chore schedule. She sat on the porch steps and started crying before she even said anything. She told me her therapist had helped her understand what she had done to me. How she had stolen 9 years of my childhood. She said she was sorry for making me be the mom when I was just a kid myself trying to survive. She admitted she didn't even remember half of my childhood. Too busy with boyfriends and partying to pay attention. Her hands shook as she explained how the parenting classes made her realize all the basic stuff she never knew. Checking homework folders, making doctor appointments. She said watching other parents in the class made her see how much she had failed all of us. But especially me, I didn't know what to say. I just sat there listening to her list all the things she wished she could take back. When we went back inside, Tara was waiting by the door, looking nervous. She asked if she could hug me. When I nodded, she wrapped her arms around me tighter than she ever had before. She whispered that she was sorry for being so mean, for not understanding what I had been doing all those years. Her foster mom had explained that I was just a kid too. Shouldn't have had to raise them. She said she understood now why I had to let everything fall apart. She thanked me for being brave enough to save myself, even when it meant they had to suffer. She pulled back and showed me a bracelet she had made in therapy, beads that spelled out sister. She had made one for herself too, so we could match like real sisters were supposed to. Cyan came over and did that awkward guy thing where he punched my shoulder lightly. Thanks for making them all grow up, he said. He admitted he knew what they were doing to me was wrong, but he liked having someone else handle everything so he didn't have to. He said losing everything made him realize how much I had been carrying, how unfair they had all been to expect it. 6 months had passed since that first CPS visit. Nothing was perfect, but everything was different. Mom knew how to make 5 different dinners now, even if they were all simple things like tacos and spaghetti. The kids did their own laundry and homework without anyone standing over them. I was taking classes I actually wanted, making friends who didn't know my whole story. Mom would never win any parenting awards, but she was actually trying for the first time in their lives. My siblings had learned to function like normal teenagers instead of expecting someone else to do everything. And I had learned that protecting myself wasn't selfish. It was the most necessary thing I had ever done, for all of us.